Today we're talking about managed agents in the Gemini API. Ali, Philipp both worked on it. Ali, you want to sort of kick us off with the news around managed agents in the Gemini API?
Yeah, of course. It's in a nutshell, you make a single API call and you get an autonomous agent that can work on behalf of you and solve like problems creatively. One interesting part of this is that it works in a remote like Linux environment, in a sandbox. So it can do all sorts of crazy things like write code to solve problems, use bash commands, etc. And then because it runs in this remote environment, you don't have to worry about, like in your own production servers, writing code into your application servers. So that's part of the big value of it.
And the initial launch in the API powered by both Gemini 3.5 Flash and the new sort of Gemini Antigravity Agent, or the Google Antigravity Agent, sort of like powering the whole experience. Do you want to talk about the sort of like harness agent experience?
Yeah, so we launched a new Antigravity preview agent, which is powered by the Antigravity Agent Harness, which also powers the Antigravity IDE, and it's basically the backbone of managed agents. So you can use the Antigravity agent as it is today. Ali told you, single API call, you get a isolated Linux environment where the agent can run a code execution, where it can create files, where it can run skills, where it can use all of the tools you're already using today on your local machine. But then you can like build custom managed agents on top of it. So you can basically create your own system instructions, add your own personal skills to it, and store it in a way where you can make it very easily accessible to your customers, to your own internal teams, to your, personal projects, whatever you want to build basically with it.
And the new managed agents experience isn't actually like the first agents experience. When we launched the Interactions API, which Ali, you should talk more about for folks who haven't seen it. When we launched the Interactions API, we launched with the first managed agent, which was Deep Research. And then we landed an update to Deep Research a few weeks or a month ago, something like that. But maybe just for folks who don't know this sort of Interactions API story, maybe you can sort of like sort of tell that.
Yeah, of course. Well, first, like as Gemini API, I guess our mission is that we always want to provide the most intuitive way to build with the frontier intelligence. And our API so far had been up until Interactions, this generate content API, which was built for an era where like frontier intelligence was essentially content generation. That was the main kind of capability that was available. But then in the last few years, like agents started taking off, first with like function calling and tools and server-side tools and reasoning models. And most recently, like all sorts of other things around, longer running agents and sub-agents and steering and et cetera, et cetera. So we looked at— It's
complicated now.
It is complicated, yeah.
And it used to be so simple and now it's very complicated.
Yeah, and so we looked into that and we looked into where things are going, and we thought we want to build an API that is essentially representing these like frontier capabilities, and that's how Interactions were born. And we like it also because it's one interface that you can use to talk to both like models and agents. Deep Research was the first one, but then any managed agent you create now, you can actually call into using Interactions API as well.
Yeah, this is super exciting. I think for folks who haven't thought deeply about this, like you don't need to immediately go and use all of the agent stuff. I think that we have like tons of customers who are using Gemini models today, using the Interactions API or using generate content. And I think the nice part is like you sort of have that freedom and flexibility. Like if you do want the sort of like hosted thing that has its, that we're providing the environment and has a bunch of bells and whistles included, great, we have that. You can also use the same API and just like keep using our models and then hook up to whatever framework you want. And I think giving developers that choice, I think was a great decision for us to make, which is fun. But maybe we can actually look at a demo of some of the new managed agent stuff in action so that folks can not just hear the magic, but actually maybe they will hear the magic in this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, quickly, maybe let me talk about what the demo is, and then I'll show you the demo quickly. So you can take managed agents and essentially either integrate into your existing app, or you can wrap around it and build a new app, maybe a profitable business around it. So this is more the latter. We built this mini app using AI Studio Build that essentially uses managed agents to turn into a radio production app. So I'll show you what we have here. I'll pick an example. So Daily Hacker Bytes is essentially something that the managed agent reads the Hacker News kind of like top comments and top topics that day, picks the opposing views and turns it into a radio show with different participants calling in from different locations. And the way this works is that it calls into Gemini TTS using Interactions API. Lyria calls the Gemini model to write the script. And in the end, you get like a beautiful 3-minute radio show.
I think this example too has like 18 sources or something like that. So there's like a lot of stuff that the agent is like taking into account as it goes off and does all this generation.
And it's a single API call.
Yeah, which is wild.
So I'll show you what this looks like when it kind of finishes. So here you go.
If you can go from writing 200 lines of code a day to 2,000 with an AI agent, are you actually a better engineer? Or are you just vibing?
This is the
from
part
San
where
Francisco?
it's opposing
Hey,
views are.
Jordan, look, I think people are being way too precious about this. Like, Simon Wilson's point about vibe coding is spot on. If I've been writing Perl for 30 years,
I love
and
it.
just
Shout
want
out to Simon.
whip up a little JavaScript.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so the intro we heard sort of like the background music, and that was being generated by Lyria.
Yes.
Here we see like the model actually like going and sort of doing all the script writing and coming up with something that's coherent together. The API itself is like agent native in like many dimensions. And you want to talk through sort of like the different dimensions or the things we're thinking about, like how do we actually make sure that this thing can help people build agents, but then this is actually also usable by agents.
Yeah, so a big change which we made going from like generate content to the interactions API was changing the data model to be agent first, right? Until recently, we just had like models going like, you send a message, you get a chatbot response from the model. So you had always the user role and the model role. And like with creating agents, you have much more different types of like interaction or like types of steps or how we call them. So you might have a user input step, but then the model goes on and like does a tool call, a function call, maybe you invoke a sub agent. So you have many different like steps that happen after each other, and it's not longer like a turn-based interaction. You really have like this stream of continuous like steps going on, and your user turn might not always come after a model turn. So in this case, in our demo, we had like many different skills. The model like invoked Lyria, the model like used Nano Banana to generate the thumbnail for like the radio show. Like, so there were many steps before like going back to the user. And with Interactions API, we made all of those steps like natively integrated into the model. So it's not only a user and a model you are interacting with, you have the environment and all of the tools being first-party principle of the API.
I love that. And for developers, you can actually just like start using this. We have like skills and a bunch of other stuff to get you started.
Another focus for the Interactions API was like, so every one of us is not coding much, right? Manual coding might be a hobby for people.
We're agentic engineers now.
Yes, exactly. And to really build like developer-friendly or good developer experience, we were thinking about, okay, what can we do to help agents use our new API? Of course, like models were trained, so they have a knowledge cutoff. They might not know about steps. They might not know about the Interactions API. So we created dedicated skills, and we like completely rebuilt our documentation experience where it is agent first. You can like access all of the documentation via markdowns. There are links where the agent can search for it. We have an MCP server, which can make it much easier. So you can like basically connect the skills into your coding agent in Antigravity and like just say, hey, please build me a managed agent using the skill and like describe it, what you want to do. And then you can like together iterate on it until you are happy and then deploy it.
And also like we're thinking a lot about how to make it more native for agents in general, and also how to define agents in a way that developers are used to. So if you look at managed agents, the way you create an agent today is just a bunch of markdown files. Like you have an agents.md file, which you can write as like prose to kind of tell the agent how to work. And all the skills are markdown files as well. So we're trying to make it, you know, agent native, but also like native way to define the agents using agents. We're using the regular like markdown formats that developers are already used to. So really going deep into this like markdown world at the moment. Maybe the future of software is actually a bunch of markdown files.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that's spot on. It really is. Or like Karpathy, the derivative of that is like Karpathy has that quote about like English being the hottest programming language, and it's like actually probably Markdown because you need the structured syntax that Markdown provides. But this is awesome. Thank you both for sitting down. I'm super excited. Managed agents. This is sort of like chapter one of this new story for us doing managed agents in the API. There's many, the roadmap is long and extensive. Thankfully, we have coding agents to help us sort of continue to make progress on that roadmap. And if folks want to try managed agents, you can go to the Gemini API docs, you can go to AI Studio, and you can also go to agent.new to create your first agent. So check it out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.